Hey kids, what's up? Straight Talking Fedora coming at you this afternoon. And today's topic for this video is something more of a personal nature. Questions that keep getting bombarded at me, mainly by acquaintances. But when I try to answer, they don't listen or they talk over me. So I thought I'd explain it in a video. And to you, dear subscribers or viewers, get to know me at your own peril. Yes, one common mean I'm often get told is that I need to get out more often or I need to leave my home. When I try to explain that, people don't seem to hear me, or rather they don't want to hear me. And the very fact that many talk over me when I try to answer that question, and it throws me off my train of thought, is proof positive maybe they don't want to know. But anyways, I'm going to talk about it here in today's video. I guess that is exactly one of the reasons why I started doing YouTube. It's basically my corner where I can speak, where no one talks over me, and I can get out my answers very clearly. Whether or not someone takes the time to watch the whole video or to listen to all I say is, of course, a whole other can of worms. For the most part, people only hear what they want to hear because it is easier for them than to actually pay any attention. I even remember one card reader, a tarot card reader last year, had the audacity to even suggest that I look for a job and go back to work, despite my explaining why this was not possible. She just simply yelled over me. I ended up running out in the middle of the reading because she never even began to shuffle her tarot cards, but just made her presumptions and put out a lot of judgment based on her own bias. And it was not constructive. Yes, I know many of you probably don't subscribe to things like that, and that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to. This is actually another one of my pet peeves that gets old. Why am I retired at such a young age? Don't you want to go to work? You look able-bodied. You're a smart girl. Why can't you? Adnauseum. I remember about a month ago, Gary over at Bipolar Corner uploaded a video expressing frustrations with people getting on his case because he receives Social Security disability benefits. Not sure what it's called. Again, I live in Canada, so not entirely sure how those things work in the United States. But nonetheless, I was able to relate to Gary's frustrations because I get my chops busted regularly due to my own retirement. No doubt, predictably, this comes from those who are on the right, politically speaking, and more often than not, they not only do not understand, they do not even want to comprehend. It goes against their ideology. But I have noticed some on the left, politically, also get on my case, maybe for different reasons. Anyways, Gary in his video asks those folks if they are jealous, and yes, I think on some level, many are indeed. I realize that it's a pretty antagonistic thing to say, but I am blunt, as you know, don't sugarcoat anything, and I don't know how to be any other way. I mean, how else does one explain that old tripe? I work hard, my taxes are paying you to, I don't know, be on welfare, be on Social Security disability, or whatever it's called, to be on disability of any payment, or disability pension. In my case, that is not true. No, I am not living off the taxpayers. Ironically, though, at my last job, I worked as a public servant for the Quebec Government Ministry of Health and Social Services. So yes, tax dollars did pay my salary, as with any public servant, and I worked 40 hours a week. I would argue that fewer tax dollars go on my retirement, but that's another discussion for another time. I am not going to really focus on this subject too much in this video, Maybe I will do one later down the road about my retirement and my own frustrations with people being judgmental. Um, I know that Gary alluded to that regarding his own situation in his video. I will link his video below in the description box. He did a great job talking about it. Another video I hope to do down the road is something I touched upon in previous videos, the mentally ill and the problematic task of holding down a job, complete with statistics and other sciencey fun. Now to the topic at hand. As many of you subscribers, viewers already know, as well as many of my acquaintances who may view this video, one of my issues is generalized anxiety disorder, as well as major depressive disorder, PTSD, and a progressive neurological disorder that I will not talk about too much at this time. What does all that mean? Well, as for the topic of this video, it's why I seldom leave my home. I seldom go out. And I will seek to answer the question why I rarely leave my home very shortly. So, for one, I do not do well in crowds, nor do I function well in group situations. I am great on one-on-one, fabulous really, if I do say so myself. But not so much with groups, and definitely not in a crowd in a sea of strangers. I am at an age now where I no longer bother trying. If it didn't work when I was younger, as much of an effort as I made only to fail, why would I in middle age continue in this vein? Actually, this is not entirely true. There are days I do make the effort or I worry. But for the most part, yes, I try to follow that thought pattern. I tend to have my groceries delivered now that the supermarket that was within walking distance from my home is closed now, and it takes 2 buses for me to go to my nearest supermarket. No, I do not drive. I do make it out the door to my specialty stores, and to go out and run the necessary errands, I tend to make it a point to go when I know where I have to be is not crowded. Also, I make it a point, as much as humanly possible, to not take public transit at rush hour. As I get older, I have less of a tolerance for crowded metros and buses and obnoxious commuters. I have less patience with obnoxious commuters knocking the rest of us out with their backpacks and such, or taking up a lot of space with packages and boxes. I'm sure many of you can relate to that, whether or not you suffer from anxiety or depression or any other mental illness that could cause this frustration or lack of patience with this sort of thing. I literally feel at times I am suffocating and that all the oxygen in that enclosed space is sucked out. Yet all I can think about is, oh Lord, I want that cigarette. Going to places like the mall or to a big box store is often problematic. Too much happening at once. Too many colors, too many items, too crowded, too loud, too smelly. Too much movement. And more often than not, too messy people throwing merchandise around in any haphazard way. That's not to say that I am some neat freak, far from it, but there is a method to my madness, not to that of others, certainly not to the population at large. I am also very sensitive to various odors, smells, many of which make me very nauseous and give me a serious migraine. Migraines are just one cross that I bear. One example of how mental health issues more often than not affect physical health and well-being. Sadly, there are many in these crowded places, like on public transit or crowded store or restaurant or bar, where it appears that folks have never heard of showering, or even worse. Oh, here's a myth I will debunk here, at least where I am concerned, speaking for yours truly. I will not presume to speak for others in the mental health community here on YouTube, but I am sure many can and would relate to what I am about to say here. It's no secret that I am dealing with loneliness much of the time, which, by the by, kids, it has been proven scientifically that it is detrimental to one's health. Many articles out there describing it as the new smoking. I will post a few links below. Maybe one day I will do a video with the scientific aspects of that. But for the time, I don't have much of a family. What few relatives I do have do not live locally, and we are not close. I don't really have a support network. Not too many I can call friends. So what am I supposed to do? What am I told to do? Well, get out more often. Well, easier said than done. Not only for the reasons I mentioned earlier in this video, but also going out as a single older woman who ain't too much to look at in this city, in Montreal. I feel even more alone than alone in my own home. Again, I am sure this is something that would resonate with many people, whether they would publicly admit this or not. In this day and age where the altar of positivity is rammed down our throats, and the mantra du jour is fake it to make it, which I categorically refuse to do anymore. It exactly has not done me any favors, nor do I think it services those who are mentally ill or marginalized. If anything, I think it exacerbates the problem. Again, another topic for another time. I think there are more who feel this way but refuse to admit it. And this would go for any segment of the population, not just those who suffer with mental illness. People outside of Montreal tend to romanticize it, and the people who live here, they somehow got this idea that folks of Montreal are actually super, super friendly. Well, maybe if one is attractive, and in the case of women, super skinny, but not for overweight people, in particular overweight women. It may have held true at one point that when a woman is sitting alone at a bar or in a restaurant, someone might ask to join or engage in conversation. I find this no longer holds true, at least not here. Nope. One is viewed as a loser, and as you know, it's a vicious circle. Nobody wants to gravitate to whomever they pursue as a loser. Besides, I don't like drinking alone. It further exacerbates my depression symptoms. I end up feeling worse, so I don't. I rarely drink alcohol, and if I do, it is socially in the company of someone else having a glass, even if it is talking to an out-of-town friend on Skype or Google Hangouts, but never alone. So that leaves me with club soda or some other mocktail or pop, which I don't drink. More often than not, is overpriced. I mean, why would I pay $6 or so for a club soda for the privilege of being ignored and or gawked at? To feel left out, to feel terrible in the midst of good time Charlies and their dates, or co-workers gathering together to celebrate something. That feeling of being left out, that feeling of not belonging anywhere. And I end up feeling worse. I do enjoy going to the theater, and I go see a play every so often, but for the most part, I am often going alone. I may enjoy this show I am seeing, but feel something missing from the whole experience, a companion to go with. For me, part of the whole theater experience is having a discussion about the show afterward over a drink or coffee, or even dinner. It's part of the fun, for me anyway. Sometimes I wonder what the point is of just going alone to see a show. But I continue to do so anyway. Some have suggested meetups. Well, again, the answer to that is I do not function well in groups. I tend to have less fun. I tend to feel left out and ignored, maybe even gawked at. Like I said, I am great at one-on-one, and I often have more fun on a one-on-one basis. Group situations often drain me emotionally and physically. I think the only time I did function okay in a group was through a friend who lives far away from me. I'm not going to mention his name so as to respect his privacy. But it was when he introduced me to his friends and or his family or set of acquaintances. He knew me well. He seemed to know what was needed without being spoken. And that ranks high in my books. He always made sure that I was included in conversation, that I was engaged. No one had ever done that for me in the past. For that reason, amongst others, I guess this is why that individual has always stuck out for me. I would never come across anyone with that similar trait ever again. I felt safe with him in a small group. I always could trust that in that type of situation, he would ensure no harm came to me or would stop me from doing something I might regret. Again, I had never experienced this with others. Probably never will again. Not at my age. For the most part, though, being in a group but being left out is no fun. I figured that at that time, gee, I could be having more fun at home arguing politics on Facebook or trying to create another video for my YouTube channel or posting to Instagram. But otherwise, in group situations, it's a matter of controlling my tics. Tics which I have had since early childhood. Tics that have long ago ceased to be noticeable to me. More than half the time, I don't even realize I'm doing them. I think a common one is me pulling my hair or twirling my hair. Then someone asks, "Why do you do that?" Or something along those lines, and then I automatically freeze, get very self-conscious, and then I close down. I just shut down, and that adds even more stress and anxiety. To try to not have an anxiety attack or burst into tears or not say or do anything goofy or what is deemed socially unacceptable, it's a huge effort. It is often rammed down our throats, those of us with mental health issues, to basically not be ourselves. You see, that is a contradiction that we hear often. We're often told to learn to love ourselves. But heaven forbid, don't be yourself. We've heard it from so-called relationship coaches, therapists indeed. Certainly, from our family members, from relatives, from acquaintances. It's co-workers. It's draining. It can be daunting. Especially frustrating that despite my best efforts, I still feel either ignored, left out, gawked at, and I can't decide which is worse. In a way, I find that to be a form of bullying, at least the gawked at or the judgments that are hurled my way. I sometimes do sign up for a writing course or a workshop to try to get some semblance of routine since retirement. A way to get me out of the house every so often or to force me out of the house. And sometimes the courses are enjoyable. The class sizes are small, no more than 12 usually, which functions best for me, rather than getting lost in a sea of a large class. Oh, like university being in an auditorium of over 100 people? Ugh. And the instructor always engages every member of the class, so I don't have that feeling of being left out as much. And people, by golly gee, are often interested in hearing what I have written, the writing exercises in class. So yes, I do feel engaged. But sometimes if I am not doing well, either physically or mentally or both, I cannot attend. And I worry if I wasted money on the course. Guilt. Is this schedule too rigid for me? Perhaps. I will continue to do so sporadically, depending if I find the course interesting. Sometimes I simply prefer to take online classes in the comfort of my own home, in my sweats, anytime I feel I can focus, which unfortunately happens to be in the wee hours of the night. Yes, the mind of an insomniac. Anyone ever catch my short video series on Instagram, Ramblings of an Insomniac, where I give a random thought? I don't know. Check that out. Some days, like many of my conditions, are particularly difficult. For whatever reason, we simply don't have the mental or physical energy to leave the house. Speaking for myself, leaving my home is often quite an undertaking, driven by anxiety. To add to my issues, my short-term memory has been on the decline in recent years, so that drives further anguish. Remembering basic things before leaving the home that most take for granted. Remembering to check that I have my wallet in my purse, that I have my bus pass, looking for keys and ensuring I have them. Remembering to bring whatever I need for an outing, be it an errand or social event or going to a show. Remembering to not only bring my cell phone, but ensuring that my phone has enough charge. Remembering to ensure the coffee machine or the stove is turned off. Remembering not only to lock the door, but to remember that the door is actually closed. It has happened that I not only have forgotten to lock my door, but I've actually left it open. And this just has been going on for the last few years. Yes, with my anxiety over leaving the house, it may seem actually that I'm leaving town for more than a few days. But no, it's often just for a few hours or maybe just the day or the evening. Even after leaving my home, thoughts run through my mind. Oh no, my apartment is on fire. I left the door open. I left the stove turned on. Oh shit, I forgot something. It is too late to turn back as I have to be somewhere for a specific time. What's more, for someone like myself to be forced into this position, that whole "can't you just be normal?" or that whole "conform to the norm" BS does nothing but further perpetuate the stigma of mental illness. Until we as a society learn that we as a people are more than our illness or disability, be it mental illness or physical, more than our physical appearance, more than whatever socioeconomic class we belong to, the stigma will continue. Get to know one another. Now, here's something that might be wild and crazy enough to work. You just might find that actually getting to know someone with mental illness or any other kind of disability, or who may not be of the same socioeconomic class, or who do not follow the so-called beauty standards that society has set up, we are not much different from you. We have interests, many similar to you. You never know until you ask. We can have a sense of humor. We are capable of laughing at ourselves. We might well be the first ones to help out our fellow man when in need. I am. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, just like anybody else. Yes, I know, cliché. But it's true and bears reminding. We all have our character flaws. We all have some form of expertise or talent that many others do not have, and others could benefit from. One important way of actually lifting the stigma of mental illness or any other disability for that matter, be it physical or mental or neurological, is empathy and compassion. Yes, again with the cliches, that old walk a mile in my shoes. But it still holds true. Gotta stop judging others. That's going to wrap it up for today. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe and hit the ringy-dingy icon below to receive a notification anytime I upload a video. Whew, that was easy for me to say. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Straight Talk and Fedora Chick, over and out.